Okay, well, if you are like most people, you want to be happy, but you really just don't know how. In fact, a lot of times people who have things like depression and stuff, you kind of forget that you what it's like to be happy. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the things that I learned about how to be happy. First off, happiness is a result. It's not something that you seek to attain. It's something that you would that it's like it's like this. When you're playing a game, a baseball game, okay, you're playing the game, and how do you get the trophy? Well, you get the trophy by winning the game. Your team wins, and so you get the trophy. That's like what happiness is like. You don't get happiness by seeking happiness, because then you make it a thing where you're trying to attain something, but the more you seek happiness, the less happy you are. And you kind of get lost, and you want to be happy, and so you're trying to be happy, but how do you will yourself into being happy? So I'm not happy, so I'm just gonna focus hard enough on being happy until I'm happy? That doesn't make sense. But happiness is a result. It's the natural result of living your life in such a way that produces happiness. There was a movie a couple years ago called The Pursuit of Happiness. You don't pursue happiness. You gain happiness when you pursue a life worth living. So what are some of those things that are worth living? Well, first off, don't live your life for yourself. If you live your life always just trying to make yourself happy, you won't ever be happy. There's something great that comes when you do good to someone else. When you see somebody who's hurting or who's struggling, and you go out of your way to help them, there's a certain level of happiness that comes from that. It's like somewhere deep inside of us, we want to make other people happy, and when we go out of our way to impact someone else, that makes us happy too. So don't live life for yourself. And if you're a Christian, then this is especially true. The Bible says, especially in the prophets, talking about, hey, you're trying to honor me with your fast, but these are not the fasts that I want you to do. Love other people and care for other people, and that's the kind of fast that I want. And when you do these things, then I will bless you. I will, I'll make my light shine on you. All kinds of things. But this applies even if you aren't a Christian, though. Next up, don't isolate yourself. We as people were not meant to live as an island, off by ourselves. And a lot of times we think, well, if I could just get away from people, or if I could just get away from this or that other thing, then I'd be happy. But the truth is that if you aren't happy right now, nothing will ever change that. You might do something that temporarily distracts you, like, oh, I'm not happy, so I got married. Well, that's great, but then when the honeymoon wears off, you're going to be miserable again. Well, I'm not happy, so I bought something to make myself feel happy again. Well, that's great, except that feeling's going to go away. Because happiness, you have to choose to be content, and you have to choose to live a life that's worth living. And when you do that, it'll make you happy. So don't isolate yourself. Don't live your life just for yourself. And the next step, get breaks from draining people or situations. Sometimes we have people or situations in our life that just are a constant draining factor. And obviously, especially if you're a Christian, you can't run from difficult people. You need to love everybody. You have to learn to adapt, and you have to learn how to interact with all kinds of people, whether they're difficult to get along with or not. But sometimes if someone is a constant factor in our lives, sometimes it's good to just take a day and just distance yourself from the situation before you get back to it. If you try to just run from your problems, you're never going to be happy. But sometimes when we're always facing the grind, always facing the situation or whatever, sometimes it's good to just clear your head, get away from it for a day, and then go back to it, just to kind of help you stay focused onto, where you don't get overly drained. I hope that makes sense. Stay out of debt. Oh my goodness, yes. So much of our unhappiness is a giant loop. See, we live in debt, so then we feel a lot of anxiety because we have a lot of stuff to pay off. So then we try to buy stuff to make us happy, but that just gets us further in debt. So because we're further in debt, you see what I mean? It just keeps going on and on and on and on. The key here is stay out of debt, because check this out: nothing you buy will ever make you happy. That's being entertained, temporarily entertained, or maybe even being distracted or whatever. But that's not really true happiness. That's not really a joy that lasts. That's a temporary high. It's like when you do drugs. At first, hey, you feel real good, but then you come off and it's like, wow, I feel terrible. Or like when you're drinking, man, you're drinking at a party, everybody's having fun, whatever. Then you start throwing up and you can't remember what happened, and bad things happen. So it's kind of like that. So really, just stay away from wasteful spending. Accept your job, accept where you live, accept others, accept yourself. Just accept it. There's a certain happiness that comes just from being content. Realizing that you don't have to have that new car. You don't have to have those clothes. You don't have to have that thing that you just think that you have to have. If I just had this other job, then I'd be happy. If I just had this, if this... Basically, you will either spend your time in life coveting something you don't have, desiring it, or you'll spend your life being content with what you do have. It's going to be an all or nothing kind of thing, because eventually you will lean to the one extreme or you will lean to the other extreme. We as people tend to not be very happy. We have a job, and instead of being happy that we have a job, we want a different job. We have a boss, we want a different boss. We have kids, we want different kids. We want more kids, we want, whatever. I mean, look at it like this. When you have kids and one of them dies, I mean, those of you who have lost a kid, you know how easy it is to focus on the one that died instead of on the many that are still alive. And I'm speaking from experience here. I'm not just saying hypothetically. I have personal experiences. And you have to, at one point, just kind of wake up and say, you know what? Yeah, it sucks, but they're gone. But I do still have other kids. And those other kids need me. And I'm really happy to have them in my life. So, and it's kind of the exact same thing here. You can either focus on the things you don't have or focus on the good things that you do have. You can focus on the negative side of the situation you're in or on the positive side of the situation. You can focus on whatever you want. But if you focus on the bad, you're not going to be happy. You can't constantly be complaining and whining about your situation and be happy. You have to accept where you're at. Yeah, you know what? I'm sure there's better places in the world, but I don't live there. I live here, and I'm going to make the best out of it. Yeah, I bet I could have, it's like a lot of times people make their marriage a competition. They have to have the most attractive wife in the world. It doesn't matter how good of a connection they have, how well they work together. It's always a competition. Well, she could be better looking, she could be nicer, she could be a better mother, she could be a better wife, it's on and on and on. There has to be a point where you say, okay, enough is enough. I'm glad for what I have. And you had to reach that point of accepting. Now, oftentimes what we do is we constantly degrade ourselves and criticize ourselves and just complain about ourselves. Not even things that could necessarily be changed, like, oh, I'm just a fat idiot. Well, if you're not happy with your weight, lose weight. Well, I tried to lose weight, and so get a diet, stick with it. Eventually, something's going to happen. It's not rocket science there. But if it's something that you can't change about yourself, like your face, well, you're going to have to just learn to live with it and accept yourself. But don't get in the rut of constantly thinking that if you were just someone else or looked like someone else or had something else that would make you happy. Find a purpose for your life. If you're a Christian, this should be a lot easier because your purpose, you have a higher calling on your life. If you're not a religious person, find a purpose for your life. Be that guy who let me tell you a little story. There was a guy in, I believe it was Germany, it might have been Poland though, I'm not quite sure. Not really important. What is important is that it was during World War II, and he ended up saving lots and lots and lots of kids by hiding them in his house. And you know, he definitely could have been caught and killed for that. And in fact, they did a video of it where he, as a very elderly gentleman, was sitting next to all of these kids who had grown up, but he didn't even know that they were there. And so they said, hey, if everyone who was impacted by this guy and saved by this guy, if you would stand up, and they all stood up around him, and he was able to see all these people, grown adults who went off and had their own families, that he saved during World War II. I mean, that is just an enormous thing, and that's what I'm talking about. Find a purpose in your life. If you want to be that person who helps find kids in the foster care system, do that. If you want to be that person who, find a purpose and live for something. Don't live your life wasting it day to day, where every day is just like a blur. You don't seize the day. You don't stop and realize, my time on this world is very limited. I want to invest it in something. And live intentionally. Don't just walk by stuff. Stop and notice what you've got. Do you have health? Well, be thankful for that. Do you, when you're walking by, do you see a pretty flower? Stop and look at the pretty flower. I mean, your life is just so short. And it's not worth it to live it on a constant, trying to make yourself happy by chasing after all these things. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You can have sex with every person in the whole world. You can get everything you've ever wanted. You can have the best job. You can have anything you've ever wanted, and it still won't make you happy. The two people who aren't satisfied with money, the people who think that it'll make them happy, and the people who have it and realize it didn't make them happy. So find a purpose in your life, and then live intentionally. See, find a purpose. If you're a Christian, that has special meaning to you, but live intentionally, that's something that really everybody can learn from. Live with intention. Do things on purpose. Like, oh, I quit my job. Why? Why did you quit your job? Oh, I don't know. I didn't like my boss. I didn't like my job. Whatever you do, do it intentionally. Seize your life. Don't let it slip by, because time is always moving. Always. Sometimes we feel comfortable with what we have, but eventually it's going to slip through your hands, like it always does. That's what life does. But if you live with intention, if you live and do things on purpose, then you can be happy with how you invested it. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and do something you've never done before. Be afraid of wasting your opportunities in your life. Be thankful. Learn to appreciate the small things in life. You can either focus on everything bad, or you can focus on everything good. And I'm going to use an example from the Bible. If you're not a Christian, I think you can still learn from this. In the book of Philippians, he's going through all these things that went bad, except he looks on the bright side of every single part. Like, for instance, some people are preaching the gospel, but they're doing it in a way to, oppose Paul, in a way to do it for their own personal well-being. And you know what he says? He says, at least the gospel is being preached. That's what I'm talking about, where you're able to just look past something and say, yeah, that's a bad situation, but this is the good side about it. This is the good thing about it. And, I do want to caution you, don't look off in the future and say, well, this is the good that might come from it, because then if it doesn't happen like that, you're going to be disappointed. Instead, pay attention to the good that actually already exists, because we need to learn to retrain ourselves. And I've said this in other videos, but the more we complain about stuff, the more that our brain we teach our brain to complain, and we become more negative. So be thankful even for the little things. I mean, goodness sakes, anything you can find to be thankful for. I mean, just the simplest of things. Once you start teaching yourself to be thankful and you focus on those good things, it changes the way you think about the world. Oh, well, I have cancer. I lost my wife. I don't like my job. I'm just going through the days. Hey, at least you're still alive. Well, I wish I wasn't alive. Well, maybe you need to stop thinking about how you wish you weren't alive and appreciate the life that you've got. I mean, consider the kids who have died with cancer. Children dying of cancer. I mean, here we are as adults, and they never even made it that far. They were never able to go to high school to have a first crash. They died. They'd just gone. Well, like, what a waste. So since you have this opportunity, since you have this breath, since you have this day, this moment, don't worry about what comes tomorrow. Just live in the present. Stop with all the plans, stop with all the worrying about what'll happen tomorrow. Just stop all that and just focus on this moment and appreciate this moment. I mean, think about your life. How oftentimes do we have sex while thinking about what we're going to be doing after sex? Going to bed already thinking about what we're going to be doing the next morning. Wake up in the morning and we're just trying to hold on to sleep for a little bit longer so that we can hold on to some fantasy of what life could be like. You know, we always live in this way of just not living in the moment. Just stop, breathe for a second, and realize you've got this moment. And there has to be a point where you say, that's enough. This moment is enough. Exercise and eat healthy, absolutely. You know, people want to eat whatever and do whatever, and then when their body feels like crap, they want to say, oh, well, why am I not happy? Well, you know, maybe it's because you're 70 pounds overweight. And then do something for fun. I mean, there has to be a point when you don't live your life for work. There has to be a point where you do something that's just for you, something that's just fun. I'm a pastor, so I know all about this one. If you let it, being a pastor will consume literally every moment of your life. People, you know, always trying to make people happy, trying to fix problems, try to, you know, make the church work more efficiently, trying to save money, trying to do this, that, and the other thing. There has to be a point where you just say, okay, all right, I'm going to do something just for fun. I mean, learn an instrument. You know, oh, well, what's the good of that? I'll just die, and then it would have been a complete waste of time. Well, no, because life isn't about all the things that you achieve before your death. It's about moments. It's about events. It's about what you do with what you were given. And that's what it's about. Once again, I want to back up. If you are a Christian, finding a purpose is going to be a lot easier because it's going to be, you know, revolved around God and what God says. So, you know, once again, if you don't have that anchor for your morality and for your life, for your future, well, then anything's going to seem like a little bit of a waste of a time. But there has to be a point where you step past that and say, okay, I'm still going to live with purpose, and I'm gonna do this thing. I'm passionate about pregnant women, so I'm gonna start an organization that helps pregnant women. Whatever, do something with purpose, and then live your life with intention, where you purposely do things. You don't just stumble through your life, and it's like your life is a series of missed opportunities and accidents. Take what you have and do something with it. Well, I'm not very rich, so I can't do this. So do what you can. People think, oh, I don't have the money to travel around, so that means that I can't do anything. No, you can do something. You can look up pictures online of different places. You can read encyclopedias. You can go for a walk. You can go for a day trip. I mean, you can do all kinds of different stuff. But if you focus on all the things you can't do, well, then nothing's going to be fun. So do something for fun. Spend a little bit of every day doing something fun. Spend a little bit of every week doing something fun. A little bit of every month doing something fun. And a little bit of every year doing something fun. And I hope that helps. Remember, happiness is not something you can attain simply by seeking after it. Don't waste your time on that kind of nonsense anyways. Life is just too short.